Imagine opening your mailbox and finding an IRS notice. You owe money. Maybe it's a few $1,000s. Maybe it's $50,000. Maybe it's much more. At first, you tell yourself you'll deal with it later. A few months pass, then a year, the balance grows, the letters keep coming, and eventually one thought enters your mind. Can the IRS take my house? Well, the short answer is yes, but the real answer is much more complicated. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. I'm James Duff with Duff CPA Tax Resolution. And if you're worried about losing your home because of IRS debt, this video is the one you need to watch. One of the biggest misconceptions that taxpayers have is that the IRS can simply wake up one morning and seize your home. That's not how it works. The IRS generally has a lengthy collection process. Letters, demands of payment, collection notices, opportunities to respond, opportunities to appeal, opportunities to set up payment arrangements. The IRS generally wants voluntary compliance. They would much rather collect the money than collect property. But here's where people get into trouble. They stop communicating. They ignore the notices. They assume the problem will somehow go away. It doesn't. The IRS may continue moving forward whether you're paying attention or not. Before the IRS can even consider taking a primary residence, there are significant legal hurdles. This is not a routine collection action. In fact, seizures of primary residences are relatively rare, but rare doesn't mean impossible. That's an important distinction. Most taxpayers hear rare and think it can happen. That's not true. The IRS has broad collection powers. The question is usually not whether they can. The question is your situation moving in that direction? And here's what concerns me. Many taxpayers focus on the wrong question. They ask, can the IRS take my house? The better question is, what happens before we get anywhere near that point? Because long before a house becomes an issue, taxpayers may face other collection actions: federal tax liens, bank levies, wage garnishments, offsets of refunds. Collection notices become increasingly serious. Those things happen far more frequently, and they often create enough pressure that the taxpayers finally seek help. I recently spoke with a taxpayer who had spent years avoiding the problem. Every IRS letter went into the drawer unopened. Eventually, that drawer became a box, then another box. By the time we reviewed the situation, the fear had become much larger than the actual facts. That's something I see over and over. The uncertainty becomes worse than the tax debt itself. Once we gathered the information and developed a plan, the taxpayer finally understood where they stood. And that's when the panic starts to disappear. Here's what most taxpayers don't realize. The IRS collection system is largely driven by deadlines. If you respond, options usually exist. If you ignore everything, options begin disappearing. That's why waiting is often the most expensive strategy. Not because the IRS is going to show up tomorrow and take your house, but because interest grows, penalties grow, and collection pressure generally increases over time. If you owe the IRS money and you're worried about your home, don't focus on worst-case scenarios. Focus on facts. How much is owed? What years are involved? What notices have been issued already? What collection stage are you actually in? Those answers matter because every IRS case is different. At Duff CPA Tax Resolution, we help taxpayers understand where they stand with the IRS and what options may be available. Unlike many large tax resolution firms, you'll work directly with a CPA or an EA who can review your situation, explain your options, and help you develop a practical strategy for moving forward. There's no call centers, no salespeople, no pressure, just straightforward advice based on your circumstances. If you're concerned about IRS collection activity, call Duff CPA Tax Resolution at 203-589-4077. I'm James Duff. Thanks for watching. And in the next video, we're going to answer another question that keeps taxpayers up at night. Can the IRS take money directly from my bank account?